Today we will be talking about condensation polymerization. Alaikum assalam. Right, so earlier on in the previous chapter we talked about addition polymerization. This time we're going to talk about condensation polymerization. And this is the last topic of your organic chemistry, thankfully. Right, and once we're done with this, we'll only have two chapters left: stoichiometry, which is chapter 3. The bit of chapter 8, acid and bases, that we left about titration, I won't call that a full chapter, that was just one part. And
So
chapter
what I
14, well, this chapter 14 as well, which is experimental techniques, right? So 2 and let's say 1/5, so 20%,
quarter.
less than a quarter, but sure. Okay, now just as a recap, what we did earlier was addition polymerization, right? You can write it with the Z or the A. And over here, basically what you had is that you had a monomer unit. The book shows it as A. I'm writing it as M. Right? So you got a monomer unit in the cases that we saw, the monomer units had at least a carbon-carbon double bond in them. Right? And so what you do is you take the monomer and you know react it with another monomer, right? And you do that multiple times, and so you get what is called a polymer chain with multiple monomer units being joined together. In this case, what happens is that you are, right, adding to the double bond, and so that double bond becomes a single bond, and then you've got, right, more of the same on either side. If I just draw it out instead of just, so you've got something like this. And so these are, right, let's make it even. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then this. So these were 3 monomer units that you join together. And I'm showing like 3 just for illustration purposes. And then you obviously have more on either side. And so those join up to make the polymer. So that's what addition polymerization is, right? We saw examples of that with polyethene and the polytetra fluoroethane, ethene, sorry, and the PVC, right, and the others. I believe they are mentioned in the going further part of the text, but still. Right, so those are examples of addition polymerization. Now, what we're going to do over here is condensation polymerization. And so, how is that different? So, addition polymerization makes sense, right? You are adding one monomer to the other. The condensation polymerization is also, in theory, you're adding, but what you have over here is you have two different monomer units, right? So, with polyethene, you had just ethene, right? And you added that together, you got polyethene. Over here, you got two different monomer units, right? So what you have are, for example, A and B, right? And when you add them together, right, you get a combination of A, B. So far, so good, right? This makes sense. Why is it called condensation? It's called condensation because with each addition, right, with each right? You know, and I don't want to use the word addition to cause confusion, right? With each of, this monomer set reacting. So let's say with each set, right, you lose a molecule of water.
So these gases turn into water, as the name content says.
No, the condensation is because of this part,
Okay.
right? So over here, all you had was two carbons and hydrogen, right? So you can't really get water out of this because you need H2O and you don't have any over here. Even if you consider the H part, you don't have any oxygen for polyethylene. But the kind of monomers, obviously, so right, so you can guess you're obviously going to have carbon, you're obviously going to have hydrogen because the basic organic compound is a hydrocarbon. That's the minimum you're going to have. But since you're losing water, you know that you're also going to have oxygen over there. So these molecules are going to have hydrogen and oxygen. And the ones we're going to study are going to have, among other things, nitrogen as well. In some cases, not all cases, right? So this is, I'll put this in brackets. Right, so remember that for hydrocarbons, which are the simplest organic molecules, right, you have only carbon and hydrogen. You go up and we saw, right, carboxylic acids and alcohols and esters, so they have oxygen as well, right? And we're going to take a look at others that will have nitrogen, all that. So, right, the monomers have oxygen as well, and because of the way they come together, the way they bond, with each set of the two monomer units combining, one molecule of water is lost, and that loss of water molecule is what gives the polymerization the name condensation polymerization. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Right, now just on a side note, right, not something that I believe we've come across in chemistry, but right, on a side note, right, the reverse process of condensation is called hydration, right? And that is when a molecule of, well, put in a bracket, depends on the kind of reactions, you might have more than one molecule of water. Molecule of water is added to split a larger molecule into smaller molecules. And so you can gather from this that when you have two monomers coming together, right, obviously forming a larger molecule and losing water, you can add water and split this, right? Now, whether, that doesn't make this necessarily a reversible reaction, right? I'm just talking about the concept of hydration, right? So hydration is when, like, condensation is the loss of water molecule due to the, water molecule being one of the products of the reaction, uh, it being lost from the reacting units. Hydration is when you're adding water to split a larger molecule into smaller molecules. Now, again, this is not in your syllabus. I just thought mentioning it in passing. If this is causing you any form of confusion, just don't pay attention to what I said. I mean, for the hydration part,
Can you please
not the whole class. Yeah. Yes, sir.
can you please explain this again? Like condensation, polymerization.
So I'll explain it with an example, right? Let's go forward. So I'll explain the basics again. And so, for example, you have nylon. Right, now we've all heard the word nylon, right? It is a material, it is a synthetic material, it is sort of like plastic, one of the plastics, right? And it is made up of two different monomer units, right? One of them is a carboxylic acid and the other one is a alkane, right? So this is
Yeah.
this is what they are, right? The first one is hexa hexane dioic acid. Hexane dioic. Now, can you guess what this molecule is like?
Messed up.
Apart
It
from
has
that,
6 carbons.
I don't know.
okay,
It has 6 carbons.
it has 6 carbons. There you go, Sobi. That's how you look at it. It's a hexane molecule. It's got 6 carbons. Okay,
Okay.
It has
and
oxygen.
dioic.
It has 2 oxygen molecules.
Okay, you got the two part correct because it's a di. Remember, I told you mono, di, tri, and
Yes.
tetra, right? So it's got the di. So it's got two. Now the oic part is actually for carboxylic acids, right? So you got methanoic, ethanoic, pen, right? Propanoic. Oh, the oic part is for the right. So this is what it looks like. It looks like a right. You now they've written it reversed on this side.
Has two diatomic molecules.
Hmm?
It has two diatomic molecules, if I'm not wrong.
No,
It does not. Okay.
right? So this is what it looks like. This is its uh, what was it? Which formula displayed? Structural formula, right? Sort of. Not complete. I mean, the structural formula will actually detail the CH2 uh, 4 times, right? So you've got a COOH group over here, a COOH. So you've got the dioic, the double carboxylic acid groups, and the hexane. So there are 4 carbons. So CH2 in the middle, and there are 4 of those. So that's 4 carbons. Fifth carbon and sixth carbon with the two carboxylic, the acid group. So that's hexane dioic acid. Then you have 1,6-diaminohexane. Again, Sobia, what kind of molecule are we looking at?
Dia two.
Well, okay, fine. So you've got two of whatever amino is. We haven't come across amino, right?
Yeah.
In chemistry. So you've got two of these guys. What
Yeah.
about over here? What is this telling us?
6.
6 carbons, right? And so if I write it out, I've got CH2 times 6, right? Now remember the formula was for it's a hexane, so this is an alkane, right? This is also the alkane part. So CnH2n plus 2, right? Over here, what I have is the CH2, right? I've got the CnH2n part over here. So C1 and H2. So this is CnH2n. I'm missing the plus 2. So where am I like what am I going to have over here to compensate for the two hydrogens that I have less? And that's where the diamino comes in, right? So this is what the amino groups looks like. NH2 here, NH2 here, right? The NH2 is the amino group, right? And 1,6 tells me the position. So one of them is at carbon number 1. The other one is at carbon number 6, where they're at extreme ends.
Why did you write H to N
It's just
at
to
the
show
start?
it's just to show the orientation of the molecule. So if we draw this out, let's be a bit bold, right? This is the CH2 4. Then what do we have? We've got this guy and this guy, and then this, and that's why you wrote the HOOC in reverse. Similarly, over here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. right? And you've got all the hydrogens. So I'm not writing those out. When you're doing this in a paper, you're obviously going to write it out. And then, right, nitrogen has 3 bonds. So I have an H, that's an NH2. And as you asked, Haram, this is because the orientations I've got, right? This is what the molecule looks like. So this is 1,6-diaminohexane. This is hexane dioic acid. And these are the two monomer units that are going to combine. Okay.
And like,
Yes.
what does dioid stands for?
What does?
Like, at the end, methanoic, what does it stand
The OIC. The OIC is telling you that it's a carboxylic acid. So there are two carboxylic acid, di meaning two and OIC meaning the carboxylic acid groups.
for? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, when these two come together, you're going to have a condensation reaction, right? Which means that if you take a look at, right, the molecules, you've got this guy. So this guy is going to lose a hydrogen, and this guy is going to lose an OH, and these two are going to come together to give out, right, a water molecule, right? And so if I draw the whole thing, it's not given in your book this way. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? I've got a nitrogen over here. This guy hasn't reacted. I've got a carboxylic group over here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the other one, right? I have got a double bond over here. That's this guy. Now, right, because of orientation, because molecules are three-dimensional and so they take up space. And so for the sake of orientation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to not involve this particular hydrogen, but this guy, right? And so these two come together and, oh, I made a mistake. So you're going to have an N and then a C. And so the hydrogen that did not react is coming here. And then you've got the rest of the chain, right? So all of these guys are hydrogens over here. And you've got, so these are just, right? So you've got the two different monomers coming together, and this is just one set, right? Now, two things to highlight over here. First of all, as you can see, you still have a carboxylic group and an amino group at each end, which means that this molecule can take part in further reactions. So over here, this guy can react with another molecule of the 1,6-diaminohexane, and this guy over here can react with another molecule of hexane dioic acid, right? And when that happens, the ends are still, you're still going to have those at the end, and so you can understand how the reaction can keep occurring, right? So when this happens, you're going to lose a water molecule over here. When this happens, you're going to lose a water molecule over here. And so, right, each addition in this case, right, with each addition, again, I don't want to use the word each, further, right, reaction, right, you're going to lose a water molecule. So, right, this is how it will continue. Also, what do you have here? Now, this is a particular type of linkage, right? Then chemistry, and something that if you take biology, you'll come across as well, right? The CONH is called the amide link. Sobi, are you there? Haram?
Yes.
Right? So this guy in between that formed due to the reaction between these two guys is called the amide link. Right? And so when you end up with a polymer of this guy, right, it will be called a polyamide. Right? Based on the type of link taking place between, it is a condensation polymer, right? But the general name given, the specific name over here, we're making nylon, right? It's synthetic, obviously, but right, generally this type of molecule is called a polyamide based on the type of link that is forming. Clear? Any questions?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So, all right, if I just show you an illustration in the book where they kind of show you what a lengthier molecule will look like without going into the details of the molecular structure. So they're not showing you the displayed formula. Right, here you are. Right, so polyamides, right, you've got these gray and white units which are the repeating units, right, and you've got these links over here which are the amide links. You can see how they alternate. Right, so you got the CONH which I made. The next time it's going to be an NH and a CO, right, and CONH and a CO, so it's going to alternate like that because depends on the ends, right? And then they talk about nylon, how it's made and what it's used for, so you can just read that it's fabrics and shirts and parachutes and racket strings and stuff. Okay, that's a picture of nylon being made. All right, going back to the whiteboard. All right, so over here, if I were to add another molecule of hexane dioic acid, as we saw in the text, right, instead of CONH, I'll have the NH part coming in first and then the CO. And so, right, the links will keep alternating, but it's going to, this is how it's represented, the CONH. Okay, now this is not the only type of polymer that we can get out of condensation polymerization. There's another polymer that you may have come across, you may have heard of, right? We don't know what it is exactly. We'll get to know it right now, and that is called PET. Have you heard of PET?
Pet as an animal pet? Yeah.
Well, we're talking about a polymer, so I'm pretty sure we're not talking about an animal.
Nope.
You've
Like the
obviously,
peptide one?
huh?
Like the peptide one?
No, not peptide one. Just a sec. Okay, so have you used those disposable mineral water bottles? The plastic ones, obviously. Sure, you have.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the label? It mentions PET and it shows that you can crush them and throw them in the bin recycling, recycle them and all that.
Mm.
Right. So if you ever take a look at one of those bottles against, you read the label and you will come across PET, right? And so those bottles are called PET bottles, not because you're going to take them home and put them in a cage and feed them and name them, but because of the material they're made of. So the material they're made of, PET stands for, right? Hold your breath. It stands for ethylene terephthalate. I'm pronouncing that correct. So yeah, that's what its full name is. So I'm pretty sure we can do it PET, right? So it's the poly P ethylene E and whatever this guy is, the T. Now over here, what we have is a reaction between a molecule that is like we have a reaction between an alcohol. So we have ethane 1,2-diol. So this should be easy to figure out. Ethane 1,2-diol. So what would this molecule look like?
Ethane diol. Wait.
All right, first of all, how many carbons do you have?
2.
Yes, right? And so the 1,2, because basically you got two carbons, right? And so what does di tell you?
Di means 2.
Two. You got two of this functional group. What functional group is this?
Wait.
It can be either.
Hmm?
It can be either of them.
Either of what?
Both.
No, I mean, which homologous series that we've studied so far would it ends with all OL?
Alcohol.
Exactly.
So ethanol. No, wait.
Not ethanol, right? Ethane because it's right two carbons, and what they did is that they added OH groups to both sides. So this is a diol, it's a double alcohol, right? And you are reacting this with benzene 1,4-dicarboxylic acid. Now benzene is something, if you choose to take chemistry in A level, right, it's a 6 carbon molecule and it is a world of its own, right? It is a cyclic molecule, which obviously I will not go into any detail of. So 1,4, and this is pretty simple, dicarboxylic acid. So it's telling you it's got two of the acids. Now benzene is a 6 carbon molecule, right? So this is what it looks like. It's got the C6H4, right? So that's the benzene part. Okay. And then you've got the COOH and the COOH over here. So in this case, in total, this molecule has got 8 carbons. Now we're not naming it as octa or something because, like I said, benzene is a class of its own. So this is a benzene molecule. You don't need to know any details about it, but this is a molecule that has 6 carbons, and with that, it's got two carboxylic acid groups attached to it. So, right, just learn it as it is. Just take it for what it is.
Benzene. Benzene is an alkene.
Uh, is it an alkene? Just a sec. So you're probably saying that because it has the ene part to it, but no, it is not an alkene. It is what is called an aromatic hydrocarbon. It has, shifting double bonds, three of those, and etc. So again, let's not go into it, right? So it has delocalized double bonds and a cyclic structure and stuff. So as far as this is concerned, so just take it for what it is. Okay,
Okay.
what come again, Aram? Were you saying something?
Uh, no.
Okay.
So, okay.
So what we're looking at over here is the reaction, and so what's going to take part. I'm not, I haven't drawn it out in full. In fact, I drew this out for some reason, right? I can obviously correct that. So we've got the OH and the CH2 twice and an OH here. And so what's taking part in the reaction is the H from the OH and the OH from the acid, and that's going to give off a water molecule, so it's a condensation reaction. And so what you're going to end up with is, again, you still have a functional group at one end of the diol, and you have an O, right? I'm going to write this as CO, and then the C6H4 and the COOH. Now, does this guy look familiar to you? What if I drew it out like this? Right, I have a C, right? And in fact, if I just go back, you see this?
Yeah.
What are these guys?
Methanol. Butanol.
Sobia, what is this guy?
Which one?
This guy, this guy.
It has
Generally, what class of organic compound is this?
uh,
It's actually written on the
it has
whiteboard.
Water.
It's on the board.
nothing, methyl.
Esters.
These are esters.
Okay.
Over here, this guy, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the link, right? And I shared the chart in the text where they're showing reaction of different esters, right? So this is what it's going to look like if you make the displayed formula. And then
Is that a pentagon in the middle?
it's the benzene molecule,
Mhm.
right? So this is what this guy looks like. And this linkage, just like we saw the amide link, right? This is called the ester link. And so based on that link, these guys are called polyesters. I'm sure you've heard of polyester,
Yes.
right? So these are what polyesters are, right? I mean, not this particular combination, but the polymers with this link, right? And they've given off a water molecule. And as you can see again, right, you've got the OH group over here and this guy over here, and so they can participate in further reactions extending the polymer. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now since we've already come across the polyamide, I'm going to take you to the book for the very last part of this chapter, where we're talking about natural polyamides, right? In which case we are talking about proteins. So you obviously know that proteins are something that exist, and right, we consume proteins like meat has protein, milk has protein, egg has protein, and right. So proteins are natural polyamides, as you can see over here, and they're made up of monomer units called amino acids. Okay. Now the thing about amino acids, if you take a look at the general structure, right over here, you've got a carbon molecule. It has one hydrogen. On one side, it has a carboxylic acid group. On the other side, it has got the amino group. So a single molecule has both the carboxylic acid and the amino group. The hydrogen over here always stays as a hydrogen. And then you've got this R written over here, right? The R represents a variable group. Okay. So the variable
Yes.
group can be many things, right? And so there are 20 different naturally occurring amino acids. And so this R can be 20 different things, ranging from a simple hydrogen. It could be a CH3 group. It could even be a cyclic group. It could be a chain. It could have sulfur in it. Lots of different things now, right? Even biology, when you study, this is a topic you study in biology, and even then you're not expected to know all the R groups and the structures of different amino acids. But in the biology textbook, they do have a glossary of the different amino acids, right? So they give the names and the structures of all of them. If you open this up, this is what it looks like. You've got the central carbon, the C double bond O and the OH, so that's the carboxylic acid group, the N with the two H, so that's the amino group, the single hydrogen, and you can see the hydrogen always comes below the central carbon, and the R group on top. Right now, because this guy has both the functional groups, any amino acid, so it joins up with other amino acids to form proteins. So proteins are natural polyamides. Why? Because when they join up, they have the amide link, right? So this thing that we saw earlier, the C double bond O NH, and these guys are natural, they're not synthetic, right? So you're not making them out of, it's not a plastic. As I mentioned, right, you've got proteins everywhere, right? Just about it. How much of them you have depends, but they are everywhere. And so each amino acid has its own name. For example, the one with just the H is called a glycine molecule. The one with the CH3 as the R group is called an alanine molecule, right? And so you can have any two of these join up, as again, because they have both functional groups. And this case, glycine, alanine, they're coming together, they're forming a dipeptide. So again, di means two, and peptide basically over here refers to, right, two amino acids, right? So in this case, right, it's not called an amide link, but a peptide link, right? A peptide bond. So just because we're talking about amino acids, in principle, it's the same thing. Are you following?
Yes.
In principle, it's the exact same thing. So it's an amide link, yes. But because we're talking about natural polyamides, the naming is slightly different. So this is called a peptide bond, right? It's the same thing as the amide link. There's nothing different about it, right? Now, given that because there are two amino acids, it's called a dipeptide, right? And so you can guess that when you got multiple amino acids making the polymer, it is condensation polymerization. You can see that the water molecule has been removed over here. The polymer is called a polypeptide. Okay.
Yes.
So protein chains formed by the reaction of many amino acid molecules have the general, so this is the general structure, right? So this is one unit up till here. And so this is right, these are two amino acids. And then you've got this third amino acid coming in and forming another bond. And you can have that repeating for as many times. One point of information that is incorrect in the book is this, right? So I'll point. So further reaction with many more amino acids can take place at each end to form the final protein. It says over here, for a protein molecule, so for a molecule to be a protein, there must be at least 100 amino acids involved. This is absolutely incorrect. Okay. The,
Oh
the,
yeah.
the biology book by Hodder Education, right, for the Cambridge syllabus for biology does not give you a minimum number. So I don't know where these guys are coming from. Why? Because if you just do a simple Google search, right, in the syllabus, I believe they mention insulin, which is a hormone that regulates the blood sugar level, and it's made up of 51 amino acids. Okay. So I don't
Yeah.
know where they're coming from, like, oh, you need at least 100 amino acids to have a protein. No, insulin is a protein. It's a protein hormone, and it's made up of 51. So that's half the number that you're suggesting, and it is a very important hormone. I mean, all hormones are important, but it regulates your blood sugar. And the smallest naturally occurring protein.
Like one protein can replace one amino
One,
acid can replace
huh?
one amino acid like can replace an protein in a
No,
molecule.
no. A single amino acid is not a protein, right? A protein is a polypeptide, which means it's a polymer, which means you need technically at least three to make it a poly,
Okay.
right? But you don't have molecules. So the smallest naturally occurring, again, naturally occurring protein is a protein that is found in fruit flies. I'm sure you've all seen fruit flies, right? And that is 11 amino acids long. So, right, that is the smallest naturally occurring uh, protein. And if you go to largest, then that is known as titin, which contains 34,000 up to 34,350 amino acids in a single molecule. So you have this entire range in naturally occurring, again, not artificial proteins, but naturally occurring proteins. We're going all the way from 11 up till 34,350. So that is like a huge variation. So this part of the book, when I read it, I was like, what are they talking about, right? I don't know why they've given this thing that's factually incorrect. Now, after that, proteins make up of about 15% of our body weight, and along with fats and carbohydrates, they are among the main constituents of food, right? So the food you eat is made up of three basic biological molecules. That's what they're called. Those are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And speaking of fats, when we saw uh, the ester link over here, right? So the ester link is also something we come across in fats, right? Again, the right structure and everything is not part of your syllabus at all, I believe. Yeah, okay, fine. So over here, they're showing what a protein looks like. So you've got these different, and so a polypeptide is, right, going into the technicality. You can see that there are two chains over here. So two polymer chains. And so each chain is called a polypeptide chain. So you've got this guy over here, and you've got this guy over here. Now the thing about proteins is it could be a single polypeptide chain, like we have with insulin, or we have with the protein in the fruit fly, right, which is 11 amino acids long. Or you could have multiple similar, same, different. There are all sorts of variations, right? Polypeptides, You can see that the sequence is different for both of these, and they could be linked together. So in this case, right, this is a sulfur bridge, a disulfide bond, a sulfur bridge. Again, you don't need to know the specifics, but since they're showing that, and so that is linking this polypeptide chain. You can see it's shorter than the other one. The other one's sort of curving. I don't know whether they did that due to lack of space on the page or whatever, right? And yes, so this is the human insulin molecule, right? And so how many do they have? You've got 30 over here, right? 1 to 30 over here, and then 15, so that makes 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51, like I said. So you've got 51 amino acids over here making up this protein. And so the example that they've given negates the statement in the text itself, right? Where they said you need at least 100. So again, I don't know why they put that there. So you've got two different chains linked together. And so those two polypeptide chains make up one protein. So a bit of technicality and a bit of biology. A polypeptide is many amino acids joined together. A single polypeptide chain can be in a full protein, or there could be multiple polypeptide chains. They could be the same, they could be similar, they could be different, and then they are somehow linked together. And when they're linked together, they form a certain structure, etc., which is not part of your like syllabus, right? So let's not go into that. But they link up together, and then together they form the protein. So a bit of technical know-how as far as polypeptides and proteins are concerned. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. And that is the end of the chapter. Congratulations.
You too.
Right? So from tomorrow, we will be going to talk about chapter 4. I believe I said it was chapter 3. It's chapter 4, which is stoichiometry.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Right, so do read through the text of what we just talked about today. Give yourself your mind time to process it. And if there's any confusion, any questions, do ask.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
and I'll see you guys next time, inshallah.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah.